Welcome to my AMA with new hires. Thanks everyone for joining GitLab. Appreciate it. And thanks for putting in questions. Joshua, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Great to meet you, Sid. I just wanted to understand what threat Harness posed to GitLab in 2023.
Yeah, I see. Starting to sound like a real CEO, but I see it as an opportunity. But I do think that it's a really well-run company, great leadership, great product, and I think they're the point solution to beat. If we look at especially the release category, we think very highly of them. And if we look on the maturity under release, we see them as the ones to beat. And here you can see we both do continuous delivery, right? I think they're ahead of us in advanced deployments, and we're a bit ahead of them in environment management. So great solution, make it really easy to start. I think they have a great wizard, like this is my app, and you click a few things and you can get started. One initiative we have is a CI catalog, which will also include CD parts, which should allow us to get closer. And in general, we want to close the gap to the best-in-class solutions. GitLab is already an attractive product to switch to because it's integrated, but we want to be both better because we're integrated and better just because even a functionality in a certain stage is better. Does that address your question?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Thanks for asking. Clayton.
Hey, Sid. I was just wondering, like when you first started signing on companies, like when you launched GitLab Enterprise back in 2013, were you able to see kind of like the potential of where GitLab was growing towards, like where we are now, and then kind of where we're heading towards to this day or in the future?
Yeah, I think we've from time to time, we've articulated a pretty bold vision. I think the time where I stretched the most was in 2015 when we raised our first round. And I had to make a presentation about the market size, and the market was we were a dev platform at the time, so 20 million developers estimated at the time. And then it's like, how much are you going to charge? And it's the night before, I put in $1,000. And then in the meeting, they asked, well, how much are you charging today? And it was $20, a 50x difference between our revenue per user and what we said we could do. And I wasn't laughed out of the room, but they did laugh after I left the room a little bit about that big difference. And they calculated that even if we wouldn't get there, it'd still be a good investment. But we got there, and I think we got there because we expanded. We do dev, sec, ops, and also the kind of the common wisdom in the industry was nobody wants to pay for dev tools. And I think what we are seeing is that you need to produce great software and applications, you need more and more tools, you have more and more software projects, and that kind of exponential growth in tool project integrations makes it really attractive to have an integrated solution. And I think right now what we're looking at is we created this DevOps platform market. We're leading in the comprehensiveness of our application. We're the runner-up in revenue, and now it's important that we win the market. And then 10-year vision is to also start including model ops like data and models and the service desk, with which we're already kind of making that, but over time those areas will converge, and you're going to move to kind of one system of record for R&D. So I think that's a compelling vision. I think talent is going to keep being scarce, as in these people will be highly compensated. So if you have software that makes them better and more makes it easier to be secure and compliant, that will continue to be something you can charge for. Prabhakaran, you want to ask question number 3?
Yeah. So my question is, what do you usually see in a startup before funding them, or maybe before forming any opinion about that particular startup?
So I typically don't fund startups. I sometimes startups at Open Core Ventures, which is different. But if you're evaluating a startup, you're looking at a few things. You're looking at the background of the people who started it. You're looking at the market they're in. You're looking at their positioning. I think it's a good sign, for example, if they acknowledge that there's competition, just like I showed you Harness. I think that's a good sign. Across startups that say there is no competition, that's a really bad sign. You're looking at momentum, like how fast are they shipping blog posts, shipping code, shipping features. You're looking for what other people say about them on Twitter, on Hacker News, on Reddit. Those are a few things that come to mind. And with open source, of course, contributions from other people. Manuel?
Hey Sid, nice to meet you. I've actually been here for more than a year, but I somehow managed to miss all the previous versions of this.
Oh, good. Thanks for joining this one.
Yeah, it's really nice to finally make it. So in that year, I mean, we've grown a lot, right? So do you think that the quick growth we've seen in headcount poses a risk for how well we are able to stick to our values? And I've heard more tenured people mention on a few occasions that they do more frequently observe people not following the values as well. And in turn, I guess it becoming harder to address that as well. So I'm curious if you heard or observed anything here as well, and what your strategies are to deal with that.
Yeah, thanks for asking. And I think there's kind of following our values and following our kind of the culture, the not necessarily the 6 values, but kind of all our practices. And that's tougher when you grow fast because people bring experience from previous companies and by default, they'll just do what they did in their last job. So I do think it's important that we keep reinforcing that. If you talk about our 6 values, we've got 21 ways in reinforcing that. But that doesn't mean that it's perfect. And there's been a phenomenon I think Christine Lee named it degrees from the CEO. The further you get from me, the less some of the communication practices are followed. So that's certainly something that has my attention and we intend to improve over time. What do you think when you say the values aren't followed? What do you mean? Do you mean the 6 values? Do you mean communication practices? What are you thinking of?
Well, now that you put me on the spot, I'm having a hard time thinking of a concrete example.
Good. I didn't want to put you on the spot. I want people to feel free to ask questions. So we'll move on. Joel, number 5.
Yeah, great to meet you, Sid. I recently joined our corporate development team under Elrond last month. My question's in relation to adding consumption-based features, particularly when I think about monitoring the customers used to that when you look at like a Datadog and how you think about, moving from a very friendly, single price platform to adding any consumption-based features.
Yeah, also always keeping an open mind about that. I think consumption-based features especially make sense if what you're offering has a substantial cost to you. In general, software features doesn't have that, but compute, storage, and transfer certainly do. So I think over time you'll see us price each one of those individually, and that becoming a bigger part of our revenue, although that's starting from a very, very small base. Rajab, not sure I got your name right.
Yes, thank you, and nice to meet you. I'm a senior sell in the Nordics, and in my last 2 months, I heard from my prospects in few occasions about vendor lock-in when it comes to pitching the one platform approach. How would you address that concern or objection when talking to prospects?
Yeah, we don't want to lock people in. So we always make it possible to use other software. We got hundreds of integrations, and we invest a lot of time to make it easy to use GitLab with, for example, Jira, with GitHub, with Jenkins. We maintain those things ourselves. And we want people to adopt the different parts of GitLab because it's more convenient, because they see the advantage, not because we take away their options. Not only do we invest a lot of time, it's an open core application. So even in the proprietary parts, anyone can propose improvements, and we got open APIs, and we got continuous improvements there where people are making it easier to extract things. So I think maybe all-in-one sounds more close, but I think if you look at it, we're probably one of the most open things on the planet, integration and API wise, and because of our everyone can contribute value, I expect that will keep being the case. Alyssa.
Hi there. Nice to meet you. Happy to be here. So I joined as the People Connect manager in October of last year. So I'm a part of the people group. But my question today is, what do you feel is the biggest strength of our organization at current state?
And when you say organization, do you mean like the people who work there, or where the product is in the market, or what do you mean?
Yeah, that's fair. Since I'm a part of the people group, I think my question is a little bit more tailored towards the people side.
Yeah. I think because of our great talent brand, and because we are able to hire people across the world, and we are known to be better at working remote than other companies, we've been able to hire awesome people. I think the con of that is maybe that we have a lot of like first-time people managers who we invest significantly in training in, but that's important. And every day I'm inspired by our values. I think even myself and my reports, like every day there's a thing where you're tempted to focus on input over output. I think our result value is so important. I think iteration is really powerful. If you looked at, as a relatively small company, we've built the most comprehensive product. We can be really proud of that. And I think our transparency is having benefits internally, getting us all on the same page, and kind of keeping us a bit more honest, maybe, because other people will read it. But externally, talent brand wise, and even customers who opt for GitLab because of the transparency. So I think that the values will be an enduring advantage. Thanks for the question. Chance. Well, again, I'm not sure I got your name right.
Yeah, that Chance is right. Thanks. Yeah, based on your experience over the past year as a public company, I'd love to hear how you think about balancing strategy on longer 3 to 10+ year timelines versus maybe short-term market conditions that think perhaps on like daily or quarterly timelines.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think as a public company, we set responsible growth. So we haven't really changed that between late stage private, early stage public, and now. As long as we have strong growth, we can afford to invest in that. I think the other part of your question was like, hey, you have short-term and long-term things, and I worked with Ryan from the Chief of Staff team on this page, and I think I've never seen something like this at companies before, so I wanted to touch on it. It talks about like the different timelines you have in a company, and what is planned on what timeline. For example, our purpose and mission are on a 30-year timeline, our vision and product vision are on 10-year timeline. And then how you go from one to the other. And here's an example of that flow. So hopefully with an OKR, you can figure out how that relates to our mission and vice versa. And I think as a CEO, I want to do a better job of kind of accentuating that. Like, hey, how do the OKRs relate to our 10-year vision? How does what you do for the quarter help on the 3-year and 10-year basis? John.
Hi, Sid. I joined as a support engineer in the end of October. My question is related to chances. I've seen a lot of posts on LinkedIn recently about people analyzing the reasons for the large-scale layoffs happening in other tech companies. And I guess my big question is, first of all, I'm very grateful that GitLab is immune. I think it's used a lot to the quality of the product and the way the business is structured and everything. But as a public company, we are kind of exposed to the possibility of activist investors who are interested in pushing for the short-term gains in stocks versus the long-term welfare of the company. Curious, I know maybe this is something dicey you can't talk about a lot, but curious if you have any thoughts about that and how to handle that in the terms of like your long-term values and goals for GitLab.
Yeah, thanks for that. Really valid question. And as I alluded to earlier, our promise has been responsible growth. So if we have high growth, we can afford to invest in the future. Specifically talking about activist investors, they frequently increase their pressure on a company by calling for a vote. At GitLab, we have a tiered share system so that the shareholders at IPO have 10 times the voting rights of any shareholders who became shareholders after IPO. So in that way, we're not as susceptible to an activist investor with a shareholder vote. We're still very much kind of responsible for being good stewards of the company. That doesn't change it. And that's where the responsible growth comes in that we have to achieve in order to keep investing in the future.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Manuel.
Yes, me again. Timos mentions stable counterparts as a component of decision velocity, and I'm a big fan of the stable counterparts program. However, my impression is that support is by far the biggest, strongest adopter of it, and that there is a lot of room for other departments to take it up. This is not to say that we are better or anything. We're actually still very much figuring out how to make proper use of stable counterparts. But I'm curious, what's your view on stable counterpart adoption, as you probably have a better look at the bigger picture than I do?
Yeah, so I think stable counterparts means that where possible, you work with the same person, a person who isn't necessarily on your team. I think some parts of engineering, we now have front-enders and back-enders on the same exact team. It's almost more extreme than stable counterparts. Stable counterparts is more like we try to make sure that the same engineers work with the same product people, work with the same designers, if possible. In different teams, they might have different priorities, but we don't randomly assign people. We see the value of building a relationship and knowing the style of the other person, building trust, building familiarity, and we see the value of that work having faster progress, being more fulfilling than every time dealing with a new person. And open to suggestions how we can improve it on other parts of the company without putting you on the spot. So if you have those, feel free to add them here. Anybody else who didn't get a chance to type it up, but maybe because our numbering is broken, let me fix that. Anybody who wants to verbalize a question or suggestion or talk about the cadence page, anything else?
Hi, Sid, it's James here. I didn't have a chance to type it up yet. I've recently joined from the UK. I'm a solution architect. I was just wondering what's exciting you at the moment, Sid? I mean, obviously running GitLab and you're doing the whole thing with OpenCore, but what's exciting you at the moment? What are you looking forward to working on right now?
Yeah, well, GitLab is exciting. And I think I'm excited about the vision. I think AI is happening really fast, and then being good at integrating both. This is a giant opportunity for us. It's almost a new fiscal year, so that's always exciting. Closing the current quarter, and we're looking at. We had a top deals meeting, for example, in the beginning of the day, but also making the plan for the new fiscal year and making the OKRs. Your solution architect, so there's lots of customer results items under the new OKRs, and I'm very excited how good the value stream assessment is going in sales, and using that as a tool to meet the right people at the customer and really have established value up front. I think that's incredibly exciting.
Thank you.
Anybody else who wants to verbalize? Or wants to verbalize? Who has a question?
I have a quick question. Where do you see us in the future after Ultimate, thinking like in 5 or 10 years from now, when we have a customer that we sold Ultimate to all of their like employee base, where do you see us going next from there?
Yeah, thanks for that. You could think in the way of like a tier above. You could think in the way of more consumption. You could think in the way of add-ons where it's not one tier, but multiple things. There's always an option of not doing anything beyond that. I think the short term is incredibly exciting, where I think 39% of our revenue is now coming from Ultimate, but it's like list price is 5 times higher. So that means if you look in seats, Ultimate still has, it's very early, and we still have incredible opportunity converting more of the GitLab users to Ultimate by proving the value and getting the customer a great assessment of that up front, and doing all the other work, launching, for example, the value stream dashboards in the first quarter. Cool. Thanks all for joining GitLab and the great questions. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.